Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Do STEM Virtual Career Week, sponsored by the Department of Defense. My name is Jen Reed, and I'm the co-director of the Dayton STEM Hub with the Dayton Regional STEM School. We are so excited to have you with us today for this live session. Our special guest is Sean Toy from Ohio Oil and Gas Energy Education Program.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean, and I am the Career and Education Outreach Coordinator with Ohio Oil and Gas Energy Education Program. We call ourselves OOGEEP for short because it's just a whole mouthful of stuff to say. So we are a nonprofit education program, and we are funded by Ohio's natural gas and oil producers and royalty owners here in Ohio through a voluntary assessment on all of the production that comes out of Ohio of natural gas and crude oil. We're not a state agency, therefore we are not funded through taxpayer dollars. We do not own, drill, operate, or have any working interest in any oil and gas wells. And we are not authorized to engage in public policy. Our job here is to educate the public about the awesome opportunities here in Ohio due to this fantastic industry. So we do firefighter training. So we will bring in your local firefighters for free and train them on how to put out an oil and gas specific fire. We actually have a training program up in Wooster, Ohio, and we're real proud of that. We do workforce and career development, K-12 education programs and teacher workshops, scholarships, science fair, and scouting programs. And we do research on behalf of the industry, landowner relations, and community outreach. So we like to talk about what is essential energy and your fossil fuels. So your energy sources that are considered fossil fuels are your coal, your oil, and your natural gas. And the word petroleum is actually Latin for rock oil. So it means it was made from naturally decaying prehistoric plant and animal remains, particularly your ocean plants and animals. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So what other energy sources can you think of? There are a multitude of different sources out there. So hopefully you guys probably know about solar. And wind is getting a lot of talk lately. So then you have your hydro, your nuclear, and your geothermal. And we're here today to talk about natural gas and oil. So this is a photo from NASA from space, and it shows the worldwide energy footprint. And you see all those different countries all lit up. So do you guys know who is the largest energy consumer in the world? And if anybody said China, you would be right. But the country that actually produces the most oil and gas, when you think of where it comes from, a lot of people don't really think of the United States. So we are the top oil producing country in the world with an average of about 19.47 million barrels per day. And that's about 19% of the world's production. So the United States is actually the #1 natural gas producer, the #1 oil producer, and we are a net energy exporter. And I hope you guys know what a net energy exporter is because it's kind of important. It means that you are actually sending out more than you're bringing in. So we are a net exporter of petroleum products. We are a net exporter of natural gas, and we are now a net exporter of petroleum. So that's really pretty important because this means that we are more energy secure than ever before. And because we produce and use our own natural resources, we're less reliant on other foreign countries, which means if they would get mad at us, they can't just shut down our resources. So that's really important. So when you think of natural gas and oil in the United States, where do you guys think it's coming from? You know, do you think it's Texas? Do you think it's Oklahoma? Yeah, there is there. But it's actually right here in Ohio. And that's why it's so important to talk about the careers here in Ohio. So we like to tell people that if Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia were its own country, and we're not advocating for that in any way, shape, or form, but we would be about the size of Germany, and we would be the world's third largest natural gas producer. That's in the entire world. And that's because of the Marcellus and the Utica shales. They have the largest natural gas reserves here in the United States. And we are number 3. Russia's number 2, and the United States as a whole is number 1 in natural gas production. So let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about why we have natural gas and oil here. And here's a hint. The Ohio State fossil is the Isotellus trilobite, and it's an extinct marine arachnomorph arthropod. And there were about 20,000 different species of trilobites. And trilobites were actually one of the most successful animals to ever live on Earth. And remember, we were talking about a marine animal. So that means that Ohio at one point in time was covered by water. So 385 million years ago, you can see this photo, half of the state was covered by water. Not necessarily where you guys are sitting there in the Dayton area, part of where I'm sitting in central Ohio, but the eastern border of Ohio was completely underwater. And if you take a look at this production map, you see those black and blue dots, which that is your production areas. And so you see that direct correlation to where we were covered by the ocean. And this is because millions of years ago, you can see in the far photo, you know, the ocean was there and you had all these plants and animals, and those died and were buried on the ocean floor. And then over the years, they were buried by layers of sediment and rock, and then heat and pressure turned them into oil and gas trapped in the sediment. Now, it's really important because when you see the closer picture where they're actually drilling down, it looks like that it's a big pool there, but it's not. So, you know, it's kind of deceiving. It's actually trapped within the rock. So if you imagine that rock as a sponge, when you get a sponge wet, it doesn't change size. But when you squeeze it, all of that liquid comes out. And if you were able to squeeze those rocks, you'd be able to get that oil and gas to come out of there also. So a little history of oil and natural gas in Ohio. Oil was actually discovered here in Ohio, the first discovery in the United States in Noble County, which is in eastern Ohio, and that's called the Thorla McKee well. And then the first commercial oil well was drilled in Washington County, which is in southern Ohio, southeast. Now, the Standard Oil Company was assembled in Cleveland by J.D. Rockefeller, and Cleveland became known as the main oil producing, refining, and transporting company in the entire region. And so all of these different facts, you know, right here in Ohio, we were the nation's oil production leader up until the 20s here in Ohio. Now, a lot of people think that hydraulic fracturing or fracking is a new technology, but it was actually created in the 40s. So 1947 is when they introduced that. So they've been doing it for a long time. But in the 2000s to 2010s, they learned how to combine hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, and that completely unlocked the shale revolution. And that's why we have so much natural gas here in Ohio, and we're able to get to it. So I mentioned the Thorla McKee well, and this is what it looks like. It's actually still in production. And the really cool thing is that well casing is a hollowed out sycamore tree. And so it's still there today. These pictures we just took last year, but they weren't drilling for oil when they found it. So does anybody know what was the important commodity that they would have been looking for back in 1814? So if you guys know it, kick it into the chat so that Miss Reed can shout it out, because this is really kind of interesting, all of the things that they would have been digging for. I'll give you a few seconds here. Because in 1814, like I said, Silas Thorla and Robert McKee dug a well, and they were actually searching for salt brine, because salt, they had to use it to preserve all of their food, and they used it for lots of different things. So it was really, really important in the 1800s. But they discovered this black stuff coming up, and they didn't know what that was. So they just kind of soaked it off and got to the salt that they were looking for. But then a few years later, somebody else thought, we can do something with that. And so they started bottling it, and they sold it as Seneca oil, and they made it a cure-all. And it's kind of weird because, this is just a bottle of crude oil. But if you didn't feel good, you would drink it. If your arm hurt, you would rub it on there. If your horse didn't feel good, you can give some to your horse, because we actually have labels here in our office that say fit for man or beast. So they used it for everything. They drank this stuff, they put it on their body. It was, we don't do that anymore, right? Or do we? Because a lot of your medicines is coated with a waxy substance that is actually a derivative of petroleum. So if you look at the lower photo, you see that all of those different oil wells, and they're kind of stacked on top of each other. So if I had a piece of property and I hit oil drilling straight down, and you had a piece of property next to me, you could put an oil well on your property, and Ms. Reed could put an oil well right there on her property, and everybody was trying to dig down and hit your oil. Well, we don't do that anymore, thank goodness. So we have better ways to take care of our environment. So let's talk about how we use energy, because from the moment we wake up in the morning to when we lay our heads down at night, we do lots of things that require energy. Okay, it's fuel, it's transportation, it's your electricity, but it's also medical devices. It's your artificial hearts are made from the petroleum products, because that's how they make plastics and rubber. It's your artificial limbs, it's your IV bags, your syringes, all of those different medical devices that we need and use every single day. But if you look around your house or your classroom, there's lots of things there that are also made from petroleum. Plus your technology. So, your screen on your phone and your computers and your TV, that's all coming from a substance called carbon black. And that is also a petroleum substance. So petroleum is a lot more than just your gas and your fuels. It's your feedstocks that makes the products that we use every single day. So there are 3 different energy sectors. And when we talk about jobs in the industry, you have the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream sectors. So your upstream sector, that is going to be your exploration, your geological surveys, getting all that information. It's finding it. And then your production is actually obtaining it, extracting it, bringing those materials to the surface. And one way that they do that is through seismic technology. So they use a thumper truck, which is a ground impact system, and they will raise a heavy weight and drop it to thump onto the ground. And that thumping will generate seismic waves into the ground that are then reflected back to the surface. And then they use geophones, which are little strings of metal, and they collect that information. And so they're looking for a certain porosity, a porous rock layer that holds that oil and gas within it. And in order to map what we can't see, they use that seismic technology. So when you see the picture to the right and you see all those different colors and the different layers, when you look out your window and you see the hills and the valleys underneath the ground, it's very similar. So you have different layers, that are there, and that's what they're looking for. And so those geophones are those ultra-sensitive devices that are used to record those sound waves as they echo there within the earth. So it's a lot of awesome technology. And we like to tell students that technology in the oil and gas industry is really second only to NASA. So there are 3 types of drilling: your vertical, your directional, and your horizontal. And your vertical drilling is to access those deposits that are right straight underneath you. So you're going to drill straight down. Now your directional drilling, that's a little different, because you can drill down and then angle out to better reach those reserves. Now, directional drilling will allow multiple wells from the same vertical wellbore, and I'm going to show you that in a second here. But your horizontal drilling, that's where it's at. So an operator will drill down vertically to what we call a kickoff point. And then they're going to gradually turn horizontally to extend that wellbore laterally. Now they can go up to 2 miles underground, which means that they can go underneath a park or a school, someplace where they don't want to make any kind of a disturbance there, but they can get those different extractions. So we talked about those well spacings. So traditionally, to drill vertically, you had to drill 32 separate pad sites for 32 wells. Well, with horizontal drilling, you can drill 1 pad site and yield up to 32 wells from it. And so this has allowed the industry to have a very small surface impact and footprint. And actually, we have the smallest footprint because to power 100,000 homes in Ohio, it would just take just 1 natural gas well, or 200 wind turbines, or 1,700,000 solar panels, which that's a whole lot there. So since the first Utica shale was drilled and completed in 2011, production has absolutely soared. And in 2019, natural gas production actually increased by 22%. And that's, a whole lot, because that year they broke a 124-year record, topping 27.8 million barrels. And so that the natural gas, it was a record of 2.8 trillion cubic feet of production. And so let's put that into perspective. So 2.8 trillion cubic feet of natural gas is going to power 1 billion, 8 million TV sets for 100 years, or you could travel across the United States 119 million times. So that's a whole lot. And how are we able to unlock this? Through horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. And I need to check something real quick because I want to make sure that you can hear this video that's coming up. Let's see here. I may have to stop sharing real quick. Let's see. Let's see if it'll work. So hopefully, I'm going to turn this on and let's see if the sound works real quick. Can you hear it? Okay. Let me do something here then. I am going to apologize real quick. Let's see here. Go back into my screen, my share screen. Yeah, let's see here. I am sorry. Beginning and screen 2, share sound. Here we go. And get down here where we were. I am going to apologize because I was chatting before we started that. And current slide. Holy smoke, I talked a lot. Okay, so we should be able to hear it now. Can you hear it? Okay.
Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking is a decades-old technology that unlocks oil and natural gas from deep shale formations. This technology is now often combined with horizontal drilling, another component of oil and natural gas development that has also been used for many years. Before fracking can begin, a well is drilled through multiple layers of rock. During this process, the wellbore is cemented and cased to seal it off from shallow groundwater. While usable groundwater sources are typically located near the surface at a few hundred feet, these shale formations are thousands of feet beneath the surface, around the same depth as 6 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. Once the drill reaches the desired depth, it then turns laterally into the shale formation and extends another several thousand feet. This drilling process is highly regulated and ensures the protection of groundwater supplies and the safe development of underground energy resources. In fact, according to the Government Accountability Office, as with conventional oil and gas development, requirements from 8 federal environmental and public health laws apply to unconventional oil and gas development. After the well has been drilled and the rig is removed from the well pad, fracking can begin. To start, a series of small charges are set off along a portion of the lateral part of the wellbore, creating small fissures in the shale. Then, a fluid mixture is pumped down into the formation at pressure to open up additional cracks, or fractures, in the shale. These are thin, hairline fissures that are typically no longer than a few hundred feet. The fluid is more than 99% water and sand. Additional additives in the fluid, such as guar and surfactants, are added to the mixture to enhance viscosity and keep the wellbore lubricated. You might be surprised to know that guar is also found in common products like ice cream, and the surfactants used are similar to dish soap. The sand in the fluid keeps the hairline fractures open, allowing oil and natural gas trapped inside these tight shale formations to flow into the wellbore and to the surface. There, it is captured and transported to be refined and put to use in our everyday lives. Once the well is completed, production can continue for many years, even decades. A small amount of infrastructure will remain, but the rest of the well pad is restored. Over 90% of all wells in the United States use hydraulic fracturing. Without this technology, the enormous amounts of oil and clean-burning natural gas currently being produced in the United States and the benefits this energy provides would remain trapped in these tight, impermeable shale formations. For more information, visit energyindepth.org.
So they are a really great source of information to Energy in Depth. Along with us, they put out factual information. And the video mentioned drilling past the aquifers, and your typical water well is about 150 feet. And you'll see up at the top that little faint blue line in the cross section. And so protecting our water resources with thick steel and cement casing is how they do this. And this illustration is from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and it shows how close to the surface that water is in contrast to where they're drilling, which is about 7,000 feet down. And so when we talked about that well casing, you can see here on this cross section those multiple layers of steel and cement. And it's not cement that's used in like your sidewalk that's going to crack. It's like what's used in the Hoover Dam. So it's built to withstand those elements. It's stronger and will withstand more pressure than your typical cement. And so the perforations in the pipe allow for those natural resources to flow from the rock back into the pipe. And like they said, it's 90% water. And so that produced water is referred to water used in the hydraulic fracturing process. And it's very minimal to what is used, and it's generally either recycled or reused in other operations. So workers in the oil and gas industry, they drink the same water, they breathe the same air, and they hike the same trails as all of us, which is why they want their air and their water to be as clean as possible. So they're conservationists at heart too. And so that's why we are regulated by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. So these are different types of wells in Ohio, and you guys probably don't see these there, but in your area, but when you're traveling around, you'll see like the ones that look like a donkey, they're bobbing up and down, and those are your conventional wells. Those are your vertical wells that are going to go straight down, or they're going to be directional, and they're going to go down, and they're just going to turn a bit to get to where they need to. And so all of these different types of wells, we see them all over the place, lots of times in fields and, along the road. So your midstream sector, that refers to your gathering, transportation, and your storage of those resources. And this is going to include your pipelines, your trucks, your rail cars, and all of that infrastructure. And there are hundreds of thousands of miles of pipelines across the United States. And most of us have pipelines that are coming into our homes too. And this is the most reliable and efficient means of transporting that energy. Now, the downstream sector, that involves refining and turning that crude oil and natural gas into those more than 6,000 products that we use every single day. So, this is a family in Stowe, Ohio, and they actually pulled all of their petroleum products out onto the lawn. And National Geographic took this photo. And you look at that, and it just seems crazy. All of these things that we take for granted every single day. And like I said, there's more than 6,000 products. And that's from our clothes, which if you like your stretchy pants and your stretchy clothes, that's going to have some petroleum in it. Your makeup, chapstick, the #1 ingredient is petroleum. Your toothbrush, which I hope everybody used today. Like we said, our medical equipment, protective gear for athletics, modern refrigeration so they don't have to go and dig for salt anymore to preserve food. That way you get your bagel bites and your pizza rolls that you like. And like we said, our technology. So we wouldn't be able to have that without those resources. And this is just a short list, but there are, like I said, 6,000 products every single day that we take for granted that we use. So careers in the industry, a little bit of an overview. There are more than 275,000 natural gas and oil wells just drilled in Ohio. And we said that Utica shale is that primary driver of Ohio's natural gas production growth. Now, Ohio is now ranked 10th in the nation for total electric power generation. So we're creating a lot of power that we can send to other areas here in the United States. And we have the 7th largest crude oil refining capacity in the nation. Now, in 2019, we actually generated more of our in-state electricity with natural gas than coal for the very first time. And we are processing in our refineries about 600,000 barrels of oil every single day. So a new independent study came out from Cleveland State University, and it's showing that from 2011 through the second quarter of 2020, the natural gas and oil industry in Ohio invested an estimated $90.6 billion with a B back into the state. So do these careers pay well? Well, according to a new Standard & Poor's information, America's energy independence has resulted in a new high for oil and gas workers. And the energy and utility sectors have the highest median salary of any other industry. And I'll be honest, nuclear is the only one that pays better. So you guys there, you're in a STEM school area, which you're really, really fortunate. It's so important to the natural gas and oil industry because it's the approach that integrates those areas, and you're developing those key skills for problem solving and creativity, which is so important. So there are more than 75 careers in the natural gas and oil industry just here in Ohio, and more than 200,000, last report was 208,000, are working in that upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors here just in Ohio. And if you took all of those people, added their salary together, and divided it back out, they're making an average of $83,000 a year, which is good money. So Why is it so important here in Ohio to try to get students to go into these careers? You know, there are 4 major oil refineries located right here in Ohio, 8 ethanol plants. Ohio has the most growth for natural gas production. We have the 7th largest crude oil refining capacity, and our natural gas here in Ohio has been the biggest driver of the entire nation's energy growth in recent years. And that's why it's so important for us to educate everyone about all of these amazing careers that are right here in Ohio. So we have created a career education guide, and it's on our website, and it is going to take those 75 careers, give you a job description along with the education requirements, whether you need to go to college, whether you don't need to go to college, whether you need a certificate. It's going to tell you all of that information. It's going to also tell you where in Ohio you can go to get that education. And like I said, there's more than 75 careers. So lots of careers in the industry require a degree or a certificate, but many do not. So whatever your career path may be, there is a great career in this profession. There are more than 15 different types of engineers in this industry. And according to a recent Bureau of Labor Statistics information, the employment of petroleum engineers is projected to grow 3% from 2019 to 2029. And we actually have one of the best petroleum engineering schools in Marietta, Ohio. And so, you know, oil prices are going to determine that growth. But, you know, it's important to know that those salaries for petroleum engineers, they have remained strong. But then there's also 17 different careers available with a high school diploma, because we understand that not every student is college bound. So many companies in this industry are going to have entry-level positions, and they're going to provide you on-the-job training and allow you to work your way up to make those great salaries. So we have at OOGEEP, we have created these career cluster videos, and this is a snapshot video, and it's just going to give you an overview of a lot of the careers that are available here in this industry. So we're real proud to say that, you know, we have shot our videos here in Ohio with Ohio workers. And just to give you an idea, you know, if you like to work inside, if you like to work outside, there are amazing careers available. Now you're going to hear a lot of talk about in-demand jobs. And a lot of people think that that means they need them right now. Well, actually, that means that that career is going to be needed for an extended period of time. And so one of those careers is an oil field welder. So an oil field welder with an associate degree and certifications is going to make about $66,000 a year. So scholarships, we just finished up our scholarship campaign where we gave $36,000 to Ohio students. pursuing a degree or a certificate. Now, the nice thing about OOGEEP is we give money to students who want to be a diesel mechanic, a welder, a truck driver, along with your petroleum engineers, your accountants, all of those different degree programs. So make sure you keep us in mind when you get ready to graduate. So, you know, like I said, these are the amazing things that we do and we provide. And, you know, I want you to think about this as I'm finishing up. You know, do a little test. Ask your parents how much your electric bill is generally each month, and go around your house and unplug all of the things that you do not use every day. Do not leave your cell phone plugged in all night long. Only plug in when you need to charge up or use your device, and then compare your future utility bills, because you need to see if you are creating vampire energy. So it makes a difference. And I really want to thank you guys for having me today. And I really enjoyed this. And so, yeah, this has been great.
Thank you. This is wonderful, Sean. And I so many different careers, and I learned a lot from your presentation. So thank you so much for coming and helping us today understand more about careers in the oil and natural gas industry. It was really fascinating. Sounds like, you know, there's lots of opportunities for students in lots of different ways here in Ohio. So on behalf of the Do STEM ecosystem and our sponsor, the Department of Defense STEM Education Consortium, we appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.